Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Scribbles with Cy. But first, let's go skiing. That went even worse than usual. Today I'm going to walk you through the process for this illustration for an article I wrote on newschoolers.com. If you want to read that article, there's a link in the video description below. So this piece is supposed to go along with this essay I wrote about an experience I had on the way home from a ski trip. Then it seems like a really tiny thing, but it stuck with me. So the story is only tangentially about skiing, with more of a focus on this one moment that really stands out in my memory 6 or 7 years later. I really like doing these New Schoolers illustrations because they're a good opportunity to try new things and get creative with different processes. There are not really any expectations or strings attached. It's not even in my contract that I have to be illustrating these articles, but I like to use them as a place to grow as an illustrator. So this story is about a singer I ran into in Bozeman when my car blew up on the way home from skiing Beartooth Basin. So to go with the story, we've got her guitar case full of mountains, her hat for tips, and a pair of skis leaning against the case. It's a pretty simple layout. So I start sketching and building detail in Procreate on my iPad. Once I've got everything where I want it to be, I bring in the graphics for the skis and trace over them. I know you're not supposed to admit to tracing stuff on the internet, but for elements like these skis, and even for many more elements in illustrations, I see no reason not to. That's part of the distinction between illustration and art in my mind, something I'll dive into deeper in a later video. But basically, I didn't design these skis. I was just going to be copying an artist's work anyway, so why not save myself some time and effort and just trace them in. I did the same thing for the New Schoolers sticker on the guitar case and a Beartooth Basin sticker. If you want to read a really good article about the history and some reasons to trace and just a deep dive into the whole question, there's a link in the description. I really recommend this article. And the first person to name the ski graphic in the comments gets a high five from the internet. Once I've got the line work done, I threw a 1920s topo map of the area underneath as a background, mostly because I just like old maps, especially like hand-drawn ones like this one. Then I print everything out on watercolor paper. This is where I start to leave my normal process. I'd usually start painting over the printed line work, but today I decided to do all my initial line work and shading and texture with a ballpoint pen. I've experimented a little bit with this in the past, but I haven't finished a piece in this style yet. I love working with ballpoint pens. They're cheap, everybody's got one, but you can get a great value range out of them, from super light lights to very deep darks, and they're great for building up textures slowly. It's also just really nice to switch it up from my usual routine. Usually I'd wash my hands and be more careful at this stage, but for this piece, I want more texture and character, and I care less about precision, so I got pretty messy and smudgy as I worked in the pen. Once the pen work is where I want it to be, I go back with super light washes of gouache paint. As usual, I'm using the result of the best $17 I've ever spent, my Himi gouache set. I do super light and transparent colors, a lot lighter than usual, and I don't really bother building up any opaque highlights or shadows. I'm more just giving my line work a light color tint. And I really like how this works with the ballpoint pen. Once that's done, I hit a few extra details with the pen in places where the gouache was a little more opaque than I wanted it to be, and then I'm good to go. So there you have it. This entire process took me about 2 hours, and I've got a nice little illustration for my article. As always, if you like what you're seeing, hit those like and subscribe buttons, and feel free to leave me any questions in the comments. I'll try not to double eject in the intro next time. Thanks a bunch.